think of New Hampshire, far too often the Republican side of New Hampshire gets, I would say, they look like the brand. And that's just not the truth. Like every community, there's a lot of diversity. It's just you have to, and that's not to say there's not a ton of people like that out there. But my whole point is there's other people there that exist, and it's not violent, and it's not like a bunch of people. Pitchforks nowadays looks like signs. Do you get what I'm saying? So it's not like people burning crosses, and even some of those signs, in my opinion, are just stubborn people that don't have a lot of knowledge.
Or they're just afraid to change. But I think that's a good introduction for our guest, Chris Tardif. Because one of the things that the bias I would have about New Hampshire is that, there isn't a whole lot of diversity. And demographically, it is still unfortunately true. But I think the closer you are to the Mass border, the more diversity you might bump into. And the way Chris and I met was actually through our wives. So both of our wives are Cambodian, and let me put it this way: the odds of the odds of like two individuals who are married to somebody who's Cambodian in a small town New Hampshire is like virtually impossible.
Yeah.
And I'm gonna sort of paraphrase from like what Chana told me. So Chana's my wife, and when she saw Ra the first time, who was Chris's wife, she was like, I think she's Cambodian, but like being weird about it. Like she didn't want to go over and be like Chidep Sua, like, which basically like, hi, how are you, right? Yeah. She didn't want to do that. So for a while she didn't say anything, and then we both have sons that are the same age. They're actually in the same class at one point. And then I had a birthday party at my house, and Ra came over, and I was like, hey, she's at our house now. Why don't you just go and ask her?
Haven't looked back.
And then she went over and asked her, and sure enough, she's like, yeah, I'm Cambodian. And then they were like friends ever since.
Yeah, it's a great bonding experience. And to your point, it's very rare to see that in a New Hampshire town, right? Like, and I grew up in Atkinson, so southern New Hampshire. Born in '82, so even in like the '80s, when I'm going through the Atkinson Academy, I don't know, I'd say there were 3 or 4 people who weren't white. We're still not diverse at all, but it is astronomically better than what it was. So I think it's great to see the progression, but somebody like when my wife comes, she's like, oh my gosh, there's no real diversity here. And meanwhile, I'm sitting here being like, oh wow, what a difference. Like it's actually gotten a lot better, but we're not there yet. So it's been fun. It's been great to meet Michael and his family, and our sons have become good friends. And it's good to you can have that shared experience of like, a biracial family of like working together and becoming friends and sharing those experiences.
Yeah, I mean, it's so as you guys are thinking, I'm thinking of my wife, and I don't know if we've ever talked about this, but like, it's just coming to my mind with the intersection of the dialogue. Have you ever dealt with like your wives, because you both have wives that are not the majority? Mm-hmm. So do you ever feel like the pressure of not being the majority impacts your partner, or they handle it well and you never feel that?
You can go first.
Yeah, I think handles it great. Handles it better than I would. Okay. I think what's been incredibly beneficial for me and something I've learned to do is like really listen. As a straight white male, I'm afforded every privilege and undeserved privilege that's out there. So my experiences are not her experiences. So understanding, what she experiences in her day-to-day life is something that I've always had that empathy there, but it's been heightened since we've met, since we've had the kids. So she handles it obviously incredibly well. I probably have started to notice a lot more things that I wasn't noticing before, like where we get sat in a restaurant. Like you wouldn't think that's a thing. I never thought about that, but then there's times now where I'm like, that's weird. Like we're over in this section. Yeah. And maybe I'm thinking too far into it, but there's certainly moments where, because of our relationship, I've become much more heightenedly aware of what's going on around us. And I think that's incredibly important for somebody, again, as a straight white male, I could be very easily blinded to not paying attention to things around me. And just being aware of what's going on has been super helpful.
I think for me, so obviously I'm biracial, so like I already kind of had that heightened awareness, and especially like between the relationship between my parents, and just growing up, like my mom just pointing out to my dad, like, "Hey, this is happening right now," and my dad, having to learn and figure it out. So when I was with Chana, while I'm with Chana, like she grew up mostly in Revere and Lynn, and there's a pretty large Cambodian population. So she's sort of insulated, but for the most part, in those communities. So then when when she came up to Haverhill, obviously she lost that community, but there's still enough diversity in Haverhill that it was fine. Like I know when she like was working around here, like we would regularly like connect with people who were like Dominican or black or whatever, and it was totally fine. It's like it's a different group of people, but it was fine. And then she ended up working for Head Start in Haverhill. So once again, still involved in that community at a class level. And believe it or not, she actually found other Cambodian people that way. And then she ended up getting a job in Newburyport, and then things started to change. And now she works in Manchester, and it's completely different. But the thing that I think that's always been true, though, is that on a class level, I think there is a bit of class solidarity that transcends race.
But I think it's important too. You have Lynn and Revere, and then Roz from Lowell. So they're fairly close by, right? Like we still, I think it's important for our children. Like I'm sure you do the same thing. Like we get back there. Like we get back to Lowell as much as we can. There's I think it's the number 2 Cambodia population in the country after Long Beach, or at least it was.
Yes.
So we still go see her family and her friends down in Lowell as much as we can. I think it's great for me to go. I think it's great for our 2 children to go and be experienced, to be around people of her background, not just around just all Southern New Hampshire people.
Yeah, and I definitely appreciate that context. Like, and even beyond, like, so do you travel beyond, like I've gone to Florida, to Disney. We did the Disney thing with the kids, but I think like traveling. Do you think that for me, I find that's helpful when I'm trying to teach my kids? Because it's like, you can be like, listen, that's just the way it is here, right? And there's going to be different things in many different places. Do you find that to be the same?
I do. I think it's incredibly important. We do travel as much as we can to go to different places. And then when we go, it's not just go find a chicken or a steak or a pasta. It's like, what Cambodian or Vietnamese food can we go get and sit down? Now, my kids are wildly picky eaters, but they're going to sit down in front of this plate that we're eating to notice that there's a different wait staff. There's not just, coming to the local restaurant again here. So for sure, getting out and about out of this little ecosystem. And we've got family, and she has family out in California. So we go visit them when we can, so they can kind of get that experience of more diversity out in different areas. Just exposure, right? Exposure, get everyone out to see that there's diversity of thought, diversity of people, and give our kids the opportunity to see that they can kind of choose whatever path they want to choose.
So you were speaking specifically, which I thought was very brave, because I, in my bias, wouldn't have thought that there was like openly inclusive, ambassador, so to speak, right? Like you're very intentionally being like, and I appreciate that. Like I always talk, I believe in public safety. For everybody, regardless of background, people should be able to go to the store anywhere and be safe. I think if we're not working on that, what are we doing, right? So in my first time meeting you, you were kind of speaking what sounded like something you often speak to explain that specific work. So I kind of want to give you the platform to get into that work.
Meeting Ra, I always had compassion and empathy and was very open to all forms of life. I think meeting her gave me an incredible perspective of just life. And I think, my backstory, born in Methuen, grew up in Southern New Hampshire, middle class, parents were together, father was an administrator, mother was worked at Lawrence General. And then I meet Ra. Her backstory is her mom and dad with her 5 siblings walked from Cambodia to Thailand to escape the Khmer Rouge massacres while they were pregnant with Ra. And Ra was born in a Thai a Thailand refugee camp.
Wow.
So, and then they went, I think, to the Philippines for a year or two, then Chicago, and then came to Lowell. It's like, I got the wrong coffee order at Dunkin' Donuts. Well, how could I be mad? Like, what could be so bad in my day that I could say, oh, that's so disruptive to my life? When it's like, well, I think there's a different situation over here where like that perspective to me changed everything to just make it much more heightened. And it's gotten to the point where at my previous company, not where I am now, but previous company, about 100 people there, they asked me to lead the DE&I group. I was like, time out. Like, are we sure? Me, like the again, straight white male, DE, this feels like another white male trying to take over some sort of position, like a power. But what they recognized was they were like, we understand that, but you're going to drive action. You're going to drive conversation. Right. So I did it semi-reluctantly, and it was a great experience. It was the hardest I've worked was in that DE&I group. Just understanding that one wrong tone or word from my mouth could shift things dramatically. And what we did was we set a lot of ground rules right out of the gates that obviously anything said in this meeting is confidential unless that person allows it to go forward outside of the meeting. And also the ground rule of we're all here from a place of compassion and understanding that not everyone's going to say everything right all the time, but have the respect to understand that they mean well. And if they need to be corrected, correct them. And I think that it introduced me to the Ali Forney Center. We were talking about that earlier, where like Ali Forney Center is a place out in New York City that houses LGBTQ plus youth who've been kicked out of their house for who they are. And they provide education, housing, medical support. And I've done amazing work with them, and just going into those buildings and understanding the different forms of life that's out there and these people that just need a chance and just want to be heard and be treated like everybody else has given me that perspective. And I think as the person I am, I have a responsibility to speak up and use whatever, again, undeserved privileges I have as a white male to speak up for someone who maybe doesn't get those same privileges. And I think that's something that certainly drives me forward, and I want to make sure that I'm making as much of a difference as I can in my own space.
Super. Well, I think that's really important that you said it like that. Like, as a straight white male, like you got kind of use your privilege as a way to improve and benefit the world around us. And then we have, unfortunately, this government administration who seems to be heavily leaning towards a narrative of nationalism and white supremacy. Like we have like the vice president who, despite being married to an Asian person himself, seems to be saying like, no, the correct person is, white Christian, and a certain type of Christian too. And the president, I think last week, he just, I don't know if he drafted it. I don't know if he can write, but like supposedly there is this national security objective that basically sets like the tone for what the country is aiming for the next few years. And essentially saying like, the country is not going to allow certain people within the country because it's affecting the national security and economic well-being. And I'm sort of paraphrasing there. So, do you find yourself like kind of like in this uncomfortable position where it's like, essentially you're doing the work for progressing the country forward, and yet at the very top leadership is basically saying, no, we don't have to do that. Why should we do that? This is our country. Like, I don't know.
Yeah, it's terrifying because my wife and her family are all legalized American citizens. They came here through the right process. Never in a million years would I have thought like that could be at risk. And while I still think they're probably fine, I wouldn't say with 100% certainty that if they speak up against things that are happening, I don't think it's outrageous that our current administration could look at that and say, well, they don't belong here. Go back to where you came from.
Especially with birthright citizenship being challenged right now in the Supreme Court.
So, like, that's my family. That's my wife. That's the mother of our children. That I look at that and say, this is unbelievable. And we've had conversations too about the lack of, or hoping that there'd be more people to step up and speak out. knowing that when you do, you're gonna catch heat. You're gonna catch heat from the people who are very loud, obnoxious, and feel that way. And it's hard. I think you have to do it and be willing and have thick skin to speak up for what's going on and what's happening negatively in our world, in our country specifically. But as it terrifies me. It terrifies me. I don't want the news on. I don't want my kids hearing this and thinking like, wait, mommy's from another country. Is she safe? And I would always be like, yeah, of course. Like she's, of course. And that's like, well, I don't know that. I can't say with 100% certainty today that her and her family are good. Again, I think they are because they're legally here. But that could change. I think we're on the path towards that changing too, which is very unfortunate.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I mean, I think, and I'm always more hopeful than probably Mike. And I work, I said because I worked in state government, and I really look at like, and I'm trying to say this how do I say this in a way that doesn't discredit the work of political heads, right? A political head is a job. Mm-hmm. But you're really the political head. Your day is spent with agendas, meetings, and coordinating the information, digesting the information, and being able to really consolidate it to a higher leadership, right? Like if you're going to the governor or the president, they're going to go around that table, and you got to be able to shrink it down in a very strong. And if they want to look deeper, you need to have all of that prepared. So I just say that because a lot of those talking heads create a lot of real anxiety for us that I look at like the way we live. There needs to be more connection between the people that live and the operational people, regardless of the figurehead. And that's what I don't like about this administration. It's rooting all of that out. It's like you got to go directly to the king. You got to go to Trump. That's that old narrative. You got to go see the guy. And if the guy lets you in, then you get in versus all of us just kind of working together. And I think that just shows more productivity. So I honestly think because productivity ultimately is what's measured, right? In business. So I think, these people are just playing tough while they're in a position of power. And they far exceeded it because it doesn't even make, like, what is it called? Lame duck president? Mm-hmm. Some of the stuff he does doesn't even make sense. It's all a cash out, in my opinion.
Yeah.
So I don't take it all to heart, is what I'm saying.
So do you believe then, I guess, unfortunately, if the fail-safe right now for the country is basically economics, so all of this policy where he's like, we only want certain people and this is how we want the country to look like, you feel as though the forced exclusion that he's creating is going, like if it creates like an economic instability that people are going to be like, no, like we're done now, you've lost us, like we're not going to go to the king anymore, like
I don't know. I feel like everyone's kind of retreated back into their corners, and it's tough. Where like he's been immune to everything, right? He just anything he and if you express your loyalty to him, you stay in power. If you disagree with him, you're out. And then so there's a decision people have to make of: do I speak up against this and get knocked out of power, or do I pledge my loyalty and agree with everything he's doing and stay in power? And I think that makes me nervous. And I don't think, generally, what is it? It's the economy stupid, right? Like that whole statement of like, the economy wins, people will just look the other way on everything else. You'd like to say no, but there's this level of uncertainty right now that I think everyone probably feels of.
Yeah, but do you feel inspired by like the people that, like, I know Mike, I know you, I know Andy, I know, so if there was like like when I watch old movies, it feels like there was like this rich, powerful interest, and there's still people like that. There's people from development spaces, and I'm not saying that, but you get what I'm saying. There's enough local people involved in our institutions where I just believe in them, and I also believe in the humanistic connection we all share with our kids and wives. Like, that's macro, right? Yeah, the feds and all that's something. But on a micro level, if anyone ever tries to come out here and attack my community, I'm going to stand by the guys that are like, we ain't going for this. Mm-hmm. And it will be what it will be. And I'm going to do that because I love my wife, I love my community, I love my kids. And I've already made that conscious decision in my mind, but I don't got to have daily anxiety about it. Do you get what I'm saying?
I do. I think what concerns me is I think that's the level of you are falling. I don't think there's as many of you out there today as there were 15 years ago, 10 years ago. That makes me nervous of like the people willing to step up and say, we're not going anywhere. They exist. And I do get hopeful when we have our conversations, and we had a good conversation last night with a group of people that you get hopeful. And in those moments, you're like, this is great. And then you also maybe take a step back and say, okay, that's 15 people in a town of 6,000.
Yeah.
And you're like, well, our 15 will do what we can. This town of 6,000, and again, small town, but the majority might be leading the other way. And that's a lot that we have to overcome to maintain a level of civility that we're looking for. But I mean, I'm inspired by that for sure, and I'm inspired by these conversations, but I also am cautiously optimistic of like, it's a big uphill battle.
But do you think people posture? Like, my point is, out of that demographic, how many of those people are just posturing like they're going to do something, but when it really happens? And that's what my point is. That's my faith. Like, my faith is the mob used to be assembled. No, like someone would put out a provocative comment and there would be a mob of people that would do whatever, right? The mob, it assembles, but it's digital. It's like not like what it used to be. So that's where I'm.
Yes and no. I think you're speaking specifically to your community, because in our community, we have an ability. I shouldn't say have an ability. We almost, in a sense, we have an obligation, but it's more of an ability that we actually physically assemble to actually make decisions within our community.
Okay.
And in those moments, especially what happened last year, and hopefully it doesn't repeat again, is that the loudest person who has the simplest angry thought process seems to be winning. Where they're just like, I don't want this to happen. You don't want it to happen either. Show up and we'll let everyone else know we don't want this. And that's exactly what happens. Meanwhile, there's people like us who are like, well, unfortunately, the problem is more complex than you think it is. Let us explain why. And in order for us to really get the idea out there, we have to explain it. And people are just like, well, unfortunately, this isn't funny or a TikTok video, so I'm going to tune out. And they're like, you know what, this person who's extremely angry with this really simplistic idea, I kind of like what they're saying.
Yeah.
Like, there's no way to compete with that. There was a video I was watching actually this morning. It's a YouTuber, and his whole YouTube channel is just him teaching different elements of history. And his episode recently was actually what determines an expert, which I thought was kind of interesting, because he was saying historically, people actually ignore experts because they feel that they know better. Because ironically enough, people are more apt to go towards the simple idea instead of taking the time to understand the complex problem. So when they're faced with a bunch of facts, instead of being skeptical and then saying, let me do more research, they're skeptical and then they're dismissive. And as a result, people, when they become dismissive, they say, oh, that person's not an expert. But historically speaking, when those experts are ignored, the problems that they predicted almost always happen. So they were saying, so he was basically saying in this video essay that by the very end that the reason, well, one, you can identify experts because that's all they do. They spend their whole lives just understanding and knowing one subject matter. But the reason that we want to focus on experts and listen to them is that it's actually necessary for human survival. And every time an expert is ignored, humans fail. And I was like, well, this is supposed to be positive. He tries to be upbeat about it by the end, but I did not feel that way by the end of the video. He used a lot of great examples, like, for example, like the experts who were studying like the effects of like cigarettes on your lungs, for example. They were ignored for like 50 years. Everything they predicted that would happen to your body came true.
I think people so we went to Dorchester, we went to the mix.
Yeah.
My point is, when those guys see this and that you guys are up in New Hampshire doing the work, that's an impact to me. Because I think from that perspective, you just have a biased perception. If you ever even see New Hampshire, like, when are you guys even getting on the TV in New Hampshire? There's this comms thing is a whole nother thing that we're intentionally trying to bust. But you get what I'm saying. There is an impact for me, when I'm in conversations and people talk about New Hampshire, where I get to think about you and in the meeting and the people and be like, no, that's not true. There is a place you could invest. There are people there that are positioned to do the work, but in my opinion, you guys need capital. Yeah. If I'm being honest, and I'm not to make everything about money, but like your position in New Hampshire, economically, your opposition is far outpacing you, I'm assuming.
No, you're entirely right, because unfortunately, when it comes to doing things that actually benefit the community, it's actually, in some cases, antithetical to business. Because in New Hampshire, because of the way things are structured, it's very easy to affect how much a business has to contribute to the state. So if these businesses just kind of lobby towards state representatives and basically say, hey, you do X, Y, and Z thing for us, I don't know what these representatives get out of it. But you have to imagine that something's happening on the back end, because a representative only gets $100 a year. So,
right, for sure.
So they're clearly legislating in favor of these businesses for something. And the businesses are benefiting greatly. They're literally not contributing that much to the state anymore. So the problem that we're having is that now at the local level, we're paying so much more to make up for the fact that all this revenue that used to come in is no longer coming in.
And what's unique about New Hampshire, I guess it's probably for the whole country, is we're generally represented from a Democratic side on the federal level and on the Republican side of the state level. So like the town of Atkinson will vote for a Republican president vote for generally a Republican president. Almost 100% of the time we'll vote Republican governor, Republican town reps, but we'll be willing to vote for a senator or House rep down in DC that's a Democrat. So we have a very unique diversity of thought around different areas that need to be attended to. So as an example, Atkinson's very pro-education, generally speaking. Atkinson is also very Republican. So there might be a whole lot of Republican-leaning people who are still like, but don't touch the education. So we've got different pockets that I think are the messaging as a Democrat can win in if you can lean into those areas. So that makes it an interesting sort of puzzle to figure out. And I think going back to what you said a minute ago too about, you mentioned something, it was almost like it led towards the simplicity of the discussion of what matters most. And it kind of lends to the instant gratification that everyone here has in the whole world really has gravitated towards. So the instant gratification, what's as simple as possible that benefits me today. And that's a thing. It matters. Like it matters like what my taxes are. We all pay taxes. Like I don't want to be spending a ton of money. But I think we've started to bleed into forget about, but if I do this step, it leads to this, which benefits me even more 6 months to a year or 5 or 10 years down the road. And I think that's where we've lost that message to say, well, I want my taxes low today. Okay, but if your taxes are low today, we're going to cut this program, education's gone, mental health is gone, support for LGBTQ plus is gone. We're not driving, with no education, we are not bringing people who are smarter to New Hampshire, that businesses want to move here so that people who live in New Hampshire can work in New Hampshire, and then they're going to start hiring people from Massachusetts. Like we're hurting the state as a whole if we're not educating the children the right way. And I think, but I don't want to wait for that to happen. I don't want to wait the 5 to 10 to 15 years for those people to come through the system and then be employed. I want my taxes low today. And I think I get it, but it's that instant gratification, short-term look, simple discussion that is a headwind as we're trying to better the state.
It's interesting, like the community. I feel really blessed to have lived where I live, because I go up to New Hampshire and I know I have so many friends that live in New Hampshire. But I find it interesting that there's a lot of transplants in New Hampshire. Mm-hmm. There's a lot of people that transplanted from busy life to nature, I think, to ride off, right, in the peace of their life. But then when you raise kids in that, kids are longing for experience. So they're going the opposite direction. How do I get to the city? How do I get out of this small town, at least for a season? Mm-hmm. And then, you're like, wow, I get why my parents, but you can't erase the journey. And that's my frustration with a lot of people in New Hampshire. It's like, you can't erase your children's journey. And then as you try to erase it, like I watch so many people from the outskirts of New Hampshire that would come into Manchester. I did hip hop out there. I was 20 something years old, right? So you're meeting and there's all this untalked discussion about, you get what I'm saying, trying to hide your kids away from integrative relationships are crazy. And everyone has the right to their own decisions. But my point is, at what point does New Hampshire look at the data? That's the infuriating thing for me. It's not about what you think should be. It's about what is. And your solution should know. And that's not just New Hampshire. That's the struggle I have here too. It's not about what, we think something should be. It's about what it is, and it's about public safety. The reason I always say I'm going to always be on this podcast as Mr. Public Safety is because it's a unifying practice, right? It's something like you all are the minority, right? Who usually gets beat up in the school? The majority or the minority? So the minority should be intentionally supported to start with public safety. And if I'm honest, the untalked about thing in New Hampshire is certain Democrats feel like there could be violence at times. I don't know, but I sense it. Like people are like, these people seem like it could spill into something violence. Is that a misread by me?
I think it is actually.
Okay.
Only because at least in the Democratic circles, I feel as though, especially with the older folks, they're more willing to want to talk. They want people to come together and have.
Well, I'm talking about the LGBT young people. So the young people that are different in New Hampshire, I think some of them, and I'm not saying it's real. I'm saying, do they have feelings that they could get hurt?
Oh, okay. From a young person's perspective,
or in a
1,000%, unfortunately. So one of the things that we have, and I find it funny because I see this on social media. I see parents all the time complaining about bullying within the schools, and they're not making the connection that it's actually, and I hate to put this on the older folks, but it's the culture from the older folks not wanting to change. And they're spreading that to their kids, and then their kids are acting out in the schools. And then you have the teachers who are trying to work against that, trying to teach the kids the right way, like teaching them empathy, for example. And then you have people on the outside saying, I don't want my kid learning social emotional learning.
Don't you agree that right there is our unifying starting point? And what I'm just saying is providing safety for younger people, younger than us. I can, as a 45-year-old, I can see violence days before it happens. Maybe months, I could see someone spiraling. As a kid, you just go and you walk straight into situations that my childhood trauma took me years to get out of. So I just think practically, as an adult, me working in that space to elevate public safety has a profound impact on the future and everything there. And any logical parent, regardless of our divided beliefs, should be able to see that to start.
Yeah, I think and on that, coming from an experience of my father being an administrator in the local high school for 30 years, my sister deals with behavioral education students at the middle school now. My best friend is one of the principals. I hear a lot about how, and completely agreeing with what you're saying here, is that education starts at home, right? And a lot of the issues where the kids come in, they might get into some trouble, they might do something wrong. I hear directly that they're all like, well, it's generally the parents who are maybe teaching them this thing or neglecting or not giving them the attention they need. Where's the root of the problem, right? And I think that's something I learned a long time ago too, was if you see people floating down a river, left and right, hundreds of people floating down the river, you shouldn't just start trying to pick out one by one. Where are they falling in? Go find out where all these people are falling in. Fix that issue where at the root of the cause. And that way it doesn't because you're never going to fix it if it's just people floating by. You got to fix the issue where it is. So to your point, I think it's the starting at home piece. And unfortunately, as of a few months ago, the Parental Bill of Rights got passed. So is there a safe space for them? I think there's less and less right now, unfortunately, because there's number one, specifically to the LGBTQ plus community, on June 1st, first day of Pride Month, Donald Trump eliminated the LGBTQ plus portion of 988, the suicide prevention hotline. So people who have been directly working and been through the experiences in that community, if you dial 988, the 911 for mental health crisis, you could get to that group right away to be like, this is what I'm going through, and talk to an expert. He eliminated it on June 1st. Like, what are we doing? And then Parental Bill of Rights, which our local representative was a key piece in. Parental Bill of Rights saying that if I'm a parent, I can call the school and essentially get any information about my child I want. So on one level, I understand it. If my child is misbehaving or is sick, I don't want anyone lying to me, right? I want that information, but there needs to be a firewall somewhere. So if there's this child who is part of that community and they don't feel safe talking to their parents about it, which I think is a very common place at that age. Very common. I'm not going to talk to my parents about this right now. But I can go to school and speak to this teacher that I confide in and have a genuine conversation, and I know my secret is safe. It is no longer safe. I can't go to a teacher and tell them I'm part of that community, because if my parents call and say, is my child part of that community, they have to legally give the answer of all that information right now. There's nowhere to hide. So when you think about if there's a child who doesn't feel safe talking to their parents in that moment, they cannot talk to a guidance counselor or a teacher or a trusted person at the school. They go home, they can't call 988 and talk to someone who has their specific experience in a suicide prevention hotline. What are they going to do? They're going to internalize those feelings, and only bad things happen at that point. So I think the more we can talk about that, and we've spoken to our rep multiple times. You've really spoken a lot to her. And I even sent her a note and tried to get information of, like, why wouldn't you just have like a car mode for that? Like, it's going to out people. And they claim it won't. Like, I just laid out the example of how it does out people. So do they feel safe? I think luckily at Timberlane, our school district, we've got amazing people in place who will do the right thing and try to find ways to, have all those people feel included and protected. But those protections are eroding quickly. And I think that concerns me.
Yeah. To that point, we finally got I think 2 social workers only a couple years back. And yeah, it's those workers, which there should be more technically based on our population size, and they're at risk of being cut because they're too expensive. And people don't, it's the same people who are, for lack of better words, the root of the problem, don't see the value in these individuals. And they actually feel that this parental bill of rights, for example, is a good idea. And I'm like worried. I'm worried how the direction of our school system is going in, because we're going to start, I shouldn't say start, we are already at a point where we're losing resources to properly address the needs of the actual student population. And it's only going to get worse if we keep going in this direction of cutting. And I also, there's another statistic that's an unfortunate statistic for New Hampshire, where we have a high male suicide rate because we have a high concentration of guns. And if we get rid of all our supports within our schools, but also people like adults who are trying to maintain their way of life and they're having trouble with housing affordability, I can see that rate increasing. We've seen some pretty wild things in our district community. I think it was last year there was that same-sex couple who had a child in the Pollard school. It was a murder-suicide. Like, stuff like that is going to happen more often in our state if we don't actually start having people in like representative leadership who are saying, hey, you know what? We can't ignore these problems. We have to really address this, and it's time for a change.
Well, what's crazy is too, like, a lot of the people that know the solutions are there. They just ran from mass. like my point is, they didn't want to believe that diversity, right? Oh no, we can fix this on our own. It's such a convoluted, it's such a messed up way of thinking. I think, like, sometimes the education space gets bogged down and it lacks practicality. Do you get what I'm saying? We're only here for a certain amount of time. That's why I love it. And I want to get to the business because that's where I'm at now. I think we talked about public safety, right? Public safety, after public safety, I would say workforce development is the next big term that I would use, right? love the school. As a person that loves to feed my brain with information, love it, but give me a break, right? The products that we're looking with, something somewhere went wrong, right? And then the protection on these young people became profiteered, in my opinion. I believe, you look at the newsies and the labor practices that kind of form these stand-up groups to help children not be targeted into labor. But now, I got kids at home begging to work. Like, they're like, why can't I legally work? I gotta wait till 14. My 13-year-old can't go grab no carts now. What is the benefit of him having someone say, hey, stop being lazy, go get those carts? Like, those are more transformative than a person learning another math.
I just gotta jump in because you bring up a good point, and it kind of like to Chris's point about kind of like having a community where, like, on one hand they're really Republican, but, like, for example, they support public education. In our district community, they do believe in workforce development. So, sort of unusual in our district, and even in some other districts, we actually have a section of our school that they actually do exactly that. Which is ironic enough because it's also going to be targeted for defunding. But, like, there were some stories they were sharing in the last school year. We had one student, she got into welding. She was going into the union. There was another student who got his pilot's license. Like, and these are students who were getting it before they were 18, like, doing stuff like this. And I was like, this is amazing. I never, like, when I was in Haverhill High School, like, there was nothing like this. Even at Whittier Tech, for that matter.
Well, that's why I want to circle it back to the business. Yeah. Because my point is, in workforce development, you're in New Hampshire. You have someone that's a salesman for an up-and-coming thing that's probably going to turn into a multi-million, billion-dollar brand, because people don't understand Macy's starts here. People don't understand that small things start and then they're gone and before you know it. So if you're looking for a workforce, is your own city even giving you, you get what I'm saying? Is the system built to give you the type of employee that you're going to need in the world market? Like, because most businesses are not looking just to stay in a small town. Most businesses start at MVP in a small town, and then they scale, hopefully, to the world. And that's, if we're living in America, and that's the capitalistic dream, my point is everything is going against what we say. Would you agree with?
I agree. And to your point on, like, go pick up those carts and put them back in, or to going into school, like, with AI taking over more and more jobs, like the ability to adapt our society to, maybe it's not say, okay, let's open up child labor, right? But it's like, maybe you lower the age a little bit to where, like, now somebody can go work at Market Basket and learn to deal with an angry customer or a manager who says you're not doing X, Y, Z, and learn and build that thick skin. And then with school, it's tough because we do have extended learning opportunities at Timberlane, but there's other areas called CTE, stands for
Career Technical
Education, that right now Salem and Pinkerton, the two districts near us, they are designated as receiver towns. So right now Timberlane cannot hold a class like firefighting or HVAC, learning about fixing HVAC. They cannot hold a class and bring in Salem, Derry, Wyndham students, because we're not designated as such from the state. We're not allowed to. So all of our students have to go to Salem or Pinkerton, middle of the day. We can't provide them transportation because we don't have the money to. So if you can't get there by yourself, you can't go.
You're dealing with something.
Like, so we had a conversation with our congresswoman yesterday around this, and she's doing amazing things and trying to fix all of that, to say, like, in this society that's adapting to, we're going to lose more jobs to AI, we need to find ways to prepare kids as they graduate high school to be able to get right into work. Because not everyone can afford college. So how do we prepare them that they can go get a job day one out of high school? And we're restricted at the moment in doing so. And then to your point about, like, other people in New Hampshire that, like, I would want to pull from for our company. And I think, I sell coffee. And one thing we say in a lot of meetings is coffee is a commodity, but people are not. Right? So all coffee is mountain grown. Like, cool, I grow in this angle in this country, it's grown on a mountain. Right? There's no coffee grown on the moon right now to say it's so unique. But what's different is every individual that works for our company, every individual that purchases our coffee, those are unique instances. And for our company, a big thing we look at because of the people is, like, are you genuinely interested in making a difference, because we've partnered with NAMI, the National Alliance of Mental Illness, and like, we need to be, everyone in our company is an ambassador for NAMI, 100%. Like I've gone up to Concord when they were going to cut, I think it was $35 million from last year's budget that was going to support mental health. I was up in Concord at the budget meeting trying to argue about like, don't cut this money, we need this aid. Like I'm doing this because I work for a coffee company, but I got introduced to this whole ecosphere, and it's like we are all ambassadors for saying like, we need to fight for mental health. Mental health will be the biggest difference that we make as a company, more so than coffee. But for sure, more businesses will come here if the people are ready and educated to work. And the more businesses come, I think 40% of our New Hampshire state revenue comes from business. So if we're not enticing business to come here with our people, that's less revenue from our state. And everyone says, oh, well, it's taxes. Well, the business is paying the tax. Like, you know what I mean? Like, it's not like if you tax my property taxes, we don't have sales tax, we don't have income tax, the money's going to come from somewhere. We have to keep this state operational. And I think attracting more businesses, and the big way to do that is have the people here. And how do you get the people here? You educate them and you give them the support systems to feed through the system to be able to contribute.
We have probably just about, like about 5 minutes left. So I just want to let you know that. Look like you had a thought.
I did. I just wanted to get into the conversation about the business, the coffee, and the person you work for. Like, so how did those relationships forge? It's kind of a question.
You put yourself out there, and I think everything happens for a reason. I really do. I came to this company Happy, where I'm at now. I met one of the co-founders 15 years ago. We were selling popcorn together.
Nice.
And I vividly remember a conversation. He's a creative. So I vividly remember a conversation. We were standing outside of the hotel after a team meeting. We all went to dinner, and we were just started talking. We barely knew each other, and we stood outside that hotel for like an hour, just talking about life and business. And clearly I made some sort of a connection with him at that moment that 15 years later, he gave me a call back and said, hey, I'm doing this. And like, here we are. And he's a creative. He's the one who talks about commodity, coffee's a commodity, people are not. He also believes everything communicates, like everything. So every little minuscule piece of our product communicates something. So he's one of the initial investors of Method Soap. He created EOS lip balm, the sphere for lipstick or lip balm for his wife. Because he's like, we have 5 of these and 2 of these. And he's like, when you reach down in this empty bag of purse and you're trying to feel for where's my chapstick or my lip balm, when you feel an egg, you know you got it. He's like, he molded this egg. Then he created Hello Oral Care, which like is a charcoal toothpaste. And a lot of what Happy's built on is built on what Hello was, where you walk down the toothpaste aisle, what are the words you see? Kill, eliminate, destroy, like plaque, tartar. It's all negative. And he's like, this is about like smiling and positivity. Why is everything just kill, eliminate, destroy? Let's do one called Happy, or called Hello. And then Colgate came and acquired it, and he became the chief commercial officer for Colgate globally for a few years. Went down the coffee aisle, noticed a ton of masculinity, aggression, black packaging. He's like, this is about starting your day. And there's a whole lot of killing, murder, violence in the world. Let's create something that's like, I want to start my day with positivity. So Happy. So he created the word Happy, trademarked and registered the word Happy, partnered with NAMI. The packaging is pure, clean, pure, clean, tastes great. And then we partnered with Robert Downey Jr. as well, who is just, excuse me, who's an amazing human, has his own story of his backstory, of his struggles, and is just an amazing ambassador for us. Obviously has 80+ million followers online, which helps put the word out there. And really, I can't stress enough that our whole mission is really centered around people. And on all of our packaging, having QR codes and information for people struggling with mental health, to have those resources available to them really at an instant to be able to call. Because we did that right on the production line as we were making it. The production facility had a bunch of people who didn't speak English. And one of them came over to our COO and saw the label and said, do they speak Spanish on this hotline, this 988 hotline? And we were like, I think so. So we called it right then in front of them, and they do. They speak Spanish on the 988 hotline. She went over, told her coworker, who went down and wrote down the number and wrote down the information, because I think that coworker needed to either themselves call or they knew somebody who needed to call. So literally in our first production run, we were like, there it is. Like, there's our reason for being is we day one affected somebody's life. We don't know how or what yet, but that person finding out that the hotline spoke multiple languages was a big turning point.
So, quick last question to both of you.
Okay.
Does New Hampshire like legalize marijuana? And I'm just asking because I see a lot of New Hampshire plates in Haverhill. So, if that makes any sense.
I'll answer this quick, and then I actually want to ask a different question.
Okay.
So the willingness is there. I think the general population is for it, obviously, because you're seeing all the New Hampshire plates in mass. The legislature, at least the House, is mostly for it. So like they'll draft bills and they'll get either past the House or like they'll at least get past committee, which means they would eventually go to the floor. Once it gets to the Senate, it usually dies. I think one actually did make it to at least Governor Sununu's desk a couple years ago, and he killed it. The problem is that either the bills that are presented, they don't like the structure of how they're going to introduce it to the citizens of New Hampshire. So like one idea is that you have it controlled by like the state, like just like the liquor store, or you can have it be privately owned. And I think in both options, they didn't like how it was just being arranged within the state, how they would control it. And they didn't like how they would open it up to private businesses if they were to do it in that direction. And then there was also the old folks who were just still believing in like old mantras of like safety concerns.
Yeah, I think it's in a state where, again, no income or sales tax, you have to find alternate ways for revenue. And to me, if you're not going to tax for your property taxes and you want to find other ways to bring money in, we're surrounded by, I think it is legal in Vermont, I would imagine. And then Massachusetts, like, I mean, I don't know about Maine, probably not, but like Vermont and Massachusetts, like, you're right, people are going right over the border and spending their money that would come back to New Hampshire. So some people might be against it. I think I'd be interested in, I for sure would be pro it because it's more revenue coming in as long as the funds are going to specific areas, right? Like you want to make sure, is it helping, does it help maybe the police or some version of like, you get a little bit more assistance using these dollars to do certain things. I know one senator I asked that question to said that it's really not that much revenue. And I was like, I don't know that I agree about that. But he said, I think it would be, but I think it is.
I think most estimates say it's about $100 million that we're losing.
Well, I look just like, even if you just look at Manchester, like where, like, and this is the other thing you look at, like to your point, let's not act like people in New Hampshire don't smoke weed up in the mountains, like or at the campsites,
or in the city,
or in their home. Like, so it's like, it's, for me, it's just like it's a ridiculous thing because this is how I always think about public safety. If people are working on these other issues, which is important to them, we're losing their talent to other issues that are important to us. Mm-hmm. So if the crux of keeping that, the weed movement is never going to stop until they get their way. And are they wrong? Like when you see all the drunk drivers. So, that's where I am on that issue. Mm-hmm. And I just think it's ridiculous. Mm-hmm.
All right. I don't have time to ask my other question.
The clock, not one camera won't work? Usually you got one.
That one's going to end soon. I mean, let's wrap this up and then I'll ask the question afterwards. So, okay. Chris, I do want to say before we run out of time that I appreciate having this conversation with you. You seem very intentional about being positive and doing things for other people. And it actually relates to our previous podcast with a gentleman by the name of Michael Bastion about being intentional. Like a lot of the work he does is the same thing. So I'm seeing a theme. I'm seeing a theme actually in a lot of our podcasts about being intentional. It's sort of funny. But yeah, I just want to say thank you for being with us.
Thank you for having me. This was fun. Good conversation. Went by very quickly. Generally, that's a sign of good things to come. And we're going to keep doing what we're doing in New Hampshire. And I think we've got some momentum. It's going to take a lot more voices to step up and fight for what we believe is right. But I think we're making strides.
Yeah, and I'll be there with you. You know, I'm a friend. We will put the links though. We'll put the links to the business and to the different orgs that you described for people. And I'd love to still talk about how we to get the word out on this side, the Lawrence, the like on this side of the border. I think me and Mike have been really intentional, right? About like, listen, how do we build community to just coexist and enjoy, you know?
Yep, for sure.
So I'm gonna ask this. This is like a bonus question.
Bonus question.
Do you feel, with your experience, especially with Happy, that everything that we do needs to be done with a purpose? And Dennis, you can answer this after.
100%. I think literally, because I've gone back to, I went to Bentley University, going back there and I've spoken to students there. They have a thing called the garage or the cellar where like entrepreneurs go and alumni will come back and speak to them. And I've done those a few times. And kids have asked me like, I want to send out a mailer. I'm like, great, but like generally speaking, most people throw out mailers, right? I don't know. They people just, I get it, toss it. I was like, if you're going to do that, if you're going to invest, like, how does the mailer feel? What's the weight of the mailer? What's the look of the mailer? Like every inch and millimeter of what you're doing, I believe needs to communicate and be intentional. Every little piece, like if you go to our packaging, every nook and cranny is thought over 1,000 times. So I think everything that I do in life, and I try to do in life at least, is purposeful. Like there's a reason to it. And I did play basketball in high school, college, and it's always thinking 2 steps ahead, right? Like I'm not thinking about what's next. I'm thinking about what's next and then next and then next. Like I want to get here, but to get here, I need to go here, 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 there. So I want to make sure everything I do is leading towards a final destination or a piece of a destination, but it's going to take a few steps to get there. I think that's very intentional. And generally, when you do that, people can hear that intentionality in your voice and in your message.
I agree. Yeah, I just agree. Purpose is everything, especially once you have children. I think, you know, as a younger person, Disney got me. I believed in romance and love, right? And I met a woman and I, you know, knee on the ground type of deal. And then we had these children, and then you're like, the accountability for those decisions come. And it either breaks you or it doesn't, right? And I refuse to, I'm going to stand this post for my family and my loved one. Now with that purpose, work, and how do I, you know, thrive, for me, it's relational now, right? The work's going to be there, right? No matter what we're doing, you got to work hard, right? But I want to be around people that I care about and that care about me. And I think I deserve that. So the only way to do that is kind of to have a mindset of purpose, right? And to value today, right? Like how we treat one another. Are we kind? Are we giving each other the benefit of the doubt to move in a direction? But then more times than not in this season, I'm learning that accountability means kind of separating from people until they can kind of at least meet you in a place of reason. And that's difficult for me because Disney and all that, right? I tend to be like, everyone can change, right? But some of these people are, and I won't put that in the box, but you know, so that's the place I'm in.
All right. So this may seem sort of unusual based on some of the things that I've done in my life, but actually, I don't think that there is a purpose for a purpose, no pun intended. I feel as though as human beings, we feel that we need to have purpose in order to have meaning within our life, because if we do not have meaning within our life, then there's no point in living. And when I think about that deeply, if you think about like two or three steps ahead, it's a scary thought, right? Because it's like, well then why should I continue? And I've seen this, ironically enough, I'm not going to share the person's name, but like there's an individual close to me in my life who's going through this now because he's dealing with grief, unfortunately. He's dealing with the death of a loved one who passed away a couple of years ago, and he hasn't really recovered from that. And he's saying these things, and like logically, I'm like, you're not wrong, but like I can't like admit that to him because I don't want him to go into a deeper hole. But I also you can't force purpose on people.
Yeah, well, question.
And But we also at the same time we force purpose on ourselves, right? Like finding a partner, creating a family, having a career, doing a podcast. Like everything we do, it I feel like it's more like distraction. Like if we had if we didn't have to worry about like having resources, and even for something as basic as having sustenance and like having to eat every so often, like we could just do whatever we want, I think purpose would have a completely different meaning.
It's a whole nother podcast.
Yeah.
Yes.
I watched, I saw a post yesterday of some guy, he goes on AI or ChatGPT and asks them questions like from the future. So he's like, answer this as a professor in the year 30,000 or 3,000.
I love that.
Yeah, and like respond to me in that way, and like he basically was asking all these questions about like how did we get here, and like a lot of the conversation, it was wild, was like we're all becoming spectators in our own lives, and how the dopamine rush used to be what you're doing in the moment, and it's shifted to the dopamine rush is when you're capturing the moment now on your phone, and he's like, and then it shifts to the dopamine rush is when you have it uploaded and people are liking it. And it's like you're moving further away from the actual moment. And it's something I've thought about a lot lately, like in the last like 5 to 10 years, is like when I go to a concert, like so many people, everyone's just like, bam, or I'm at games, they're recording. Of course I'll take pictures and do stuff here and there, but I try to be like, I'm here. It ain't getting better than this. Like, I'm not gonna enjoy this video as much as I'm gonna enjoy this right here. It's like, I try to just be like, I'm here, guys. Like I'll capture a video or two to be like a memory, but the people who are constantly just videotaping and doing all these things, I'm like, just like be here.
Yeah, it's funny because I'm curating spaces, and my economic model is pretty much based off of that. It's based off of people want to take videos of themselves. They want to be in these places. So like, I completely agree with what you're saying, and I'm the same way. Like I enjoy the conversation. Like some of the things you said, I'm gonna carry with me probably for the rest of my life.